Hello and welcome to What's Up with Startups, episode number 7. And today with me is Lisandro Kaunitz. He's the CEO and founder of Energy Renovation Studio, a Greentech startup in North Italy, in Trentino. And your company, Lisandro, is working on the heat pumps. So you're in the third biggest, I would say, climate tech sector. So welcome to the show, Lisandro. Thank you for taking time.
I mean, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so please, can you tell us a little bit about what your company is doing in the heat pumps and what is your product, what is your service?
Yeah, sure. So I have to tell you a bit about very briefly on my background. I'm a former neuroscientist. I did research for 15 years in neuroscience, but then I decided to leave academia. And it's strange, but since 2013, 12, I think, 12, 13, I wanted to work in climate tech, but I never knew how and what to do. So when I left academia, I worked on technology in Japan. I was living in Tokyo at the time. And when we decided to come back to Europe, I said, okay, this is the time and the opportunity. But still, what do you do in climate tech? So I did 2 fellowships remotely online. And I learned that buildings are one of the biggest emitters in society. I didn't know this. And it came as a shock, to me, because typically when we speak about the climate tech and emissions, cars and planes come first to our mind, no? Cars and planes. How do you reduce your carbon footprint? Well, just don't use a car or buy an electric car and don't fly. But then I learned that buildings, they are responsible for 30 to 40% of emissions. And this is larger than the full transportation system. And planes, I didn't know, it's around 3%. It's kind of shocking. And when you see that, it says, why is this? It's mainly because boilers, gas or diesel boilers, they are these silent devices burning, every winter there in the basement. And we have no idea how much they are bad for the environment. So that's why I discovered about the building environment, and I decided to jump into this sector. And so what we did with my cousin when we started this company is to create a company that decarbonizes buildings, basically. So we do 2 things. We can discuss the details now. It's a bit complex, but from let's say an overall perspective, we install heat pumps and rooftop solar. That's what we do.
Are they in combination? So they work jointly, or this can be separate?
Sometimes, yeah, no. So they work very well together, but some people start with rooftop solar and then they install heat pumps. Some people do heat pumps because they have no space for rooftop solar. In general, so I think the most efficient heating system, it's a heat pump paired with a rooftop solar.
Just a little bit, can you guide us a little bit into the technology here? If from the customer perspective, I think you get this question all the time. So you are generally working with sort of retrofit. So you take a customer who has a gas boiler or some other boiler or even a wood heating, and you replace it with the heat pump. So how is it different for a customer in his experience switching to heat pump? Does he feel any difference at all?
You mean in heating?
Yes, in heating, in management, because, for example, I live in Istanbul, and surprisingly, the winters here are also can be cold, but my flat uses gas boiler. So every time I just feel, it's really becomes really cold inside, I just go and switch on the gas boiler. In about half an hour, I probably will go and switch it off because it's too hot, or I'll regulate, try to make it very low temperature. But this is kind of my experience with the gas boiler. How is the experience with the heat pump?
Excellent, very good. So this is what we do. Typically, there's a home, it has a boiler. So you want to replace it. It's everything is the same as an experience, if you want to say, except that with heat pumps, you have more technology. I will explain now a bit more. So it's more intelligent because you're electrifying your heating system, and then you can do clever things with electrification. I'll tell you why. But the difficult part of heat pumps is that the job must be done really well. I will explain what this means. So basically, you have a home, and the home loses heat. So typically, heat goes from a hot area to a cold area, and it heats the cold area. So this is especially important for cold weather, like in our region in the north of Italy, in the mountains. So the first step is to have a very good understanding of the envelope of the house. This is where it changes, because gas boilers, they're all...
Sorry, son. The envelope, you mean like the windows, the walls, like the roof?
Exactly. What all the materials that make the pavement, roof, and windows and walls. Okay. Because based on the materials, you know how much heat will leave the house. And typically in Europe, we have different energy classes. The more efficient the home, the less heat it loses. Mm-hmm. Why is this important? Because once you know the heat loss of the house, you can choose the proper heat pump. This is the first difference. You will say, how do you feel different, the client? Well, the client shouldn't feel any difference if this is done correctly. So then you say, okay, for this house, I need this specific size of heat pump. Mm-hmm. Once you do that, the main difference is that, for example, boilers cannot interact with rooftop solar. Mm-hmm. If you're producing electricity, you cannot use it to heat your house. Mm-hmm. You can do that with a heat pump. Mm-hmm. You can go a bit further. Some it depends a bit on the manufacturer, but some manufacturers, they start adding a connection from the inverter, which is the device that turns continuous current into alternate, but from the rooftop solar. And then you can connect that, the inverter or the rooftop solar, to the heat pump. And you can tell the heat pump, look, I'm having an excess of electricity. Let's use it to heat some more water. Then it will go into your radiators. So it becomes intelligent. And then, of course, you can command the heat pump. You can add a thermostat. What you mentioned before is that it's manual thermostat. You can do the same with a gas boiler, but you can add an automated thermostat. And then have the heat pump heat your house when the temperature goes below 20 degrees, for example.
Okay, so you can do it automatic.
Yeah, in addition, you can add, because we're doing this with the manufacturer we use, you can add machine learning. So you can learn when your house gets colder and warmer, and the heat pump can adapt to that. Okay. So a lot of things you can do with electrification. You could also do that if you had the technology with the gas boiler. But typically gas boilers, this is what I meant before. Gas boilers, they are oversized, meaning that if you need, let's say, 10 kilowatts of thermal kilowatts in your house, they just add a boiler which is 30. And that's what you mean. You just turn it on, goes very hot, then off, cold, and on, hot, cold. Heat pumps don't work that way. It's more like a constant, steady heating that you can regulate during the day. So I was saying that's the main difference. You shouldn't feel as a client any subjective difference. So your house should be hot. But you might experience, and some of our clients, they do, it's like you go to a different level in technology, you know.
Okay.
Like you can control everything from your app.
Okay, great.
Just like 20 degrees and it works. Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. But if just let me go a little bit back to the first, for the first few sentences you said, when you mentioned that your background is in neuroscience and
Yes.
your pivot to heat pumps and climate tech is quite incredible, I would say. I checked your on your LinkedIn profile. There is you had already had experience in startup, but in neuroscience in Japan. Yes. So what motivated you? I mean, to this switch from to me, neuroscience is like cutting edge. I don't know, things which, on par with space exploration. and brain surgery. So climate tech, on the other hand, of course, it is important, like planet-wise. But technologically, I would say it would be a little bit easier than what you were doing before. So what motivated you?
I agree. Well, yeah, let's start with the neuroscience if you want. Neuroscience, when I was doing research, I found a harsh barrier in neuroscience, as you mentioned, which is we don't have, I think, today, the technology to study the brain in detail, in the detail we need. So the brain is extremely complex. We don't have the technology. If there are companies trying to do this brain-machine interface, it's really in the beginnings of the technology. Why climate tech? I've always wanted to create climate tech, and I wanted to help reduce emissions. That's the main reason. And if you say why buildings, well, when I was doing neuroscience, we usually run experiments, and you see these effects in something you're studying, some subject. Typically, the effects are 8, 10, 18% difference. You have two groups, you run an experiment, you see your results, you say, oh, there's a 10%, 18 if it's very well, 10% difference. In the building sector, if you want to reduce emissions, we're not talking about 8%, not 18. You can reduce 80% emissions. It's like, when I saw that at the beginning, I was like, wait a second. I was talking to people, but 80%? Yes. So basically what I mean is that if you grab a house, which is not insulated, and it's a class, let's say class G energy here in Europe, the lowest class, and you insulate the house, you add a heat pump and rooftop solar, you will save at least 80% of the energy the house uses. So to me, that was the moment I said, okay, that I need to work on this sector. Yeah. This is huge. That was the main motivation.
Okay, so the efficiency gain, the potential of the efficiency gain that you saw was too big to resist.
Yes.
And how did you start out then? Because I would imagine transitioning from neuroscience going to this, buildings and.
Yeah, my background exactly. My background was in data science, also and a bit of programming. I was doing apps for the visual impaired, a bit of machine learning. So what I did first, I ran this. So I went through these fellowships to learn, read books, and I tried to do something with software. So for example, in one of these fellowships, we created a dashboard to analyze the energy consumption of buildings in the UK, and then create a roadmap for decarbonization. So again, when you see the data, you say, okay, wow, there are some buildings, 20% of buildings, they consume 80% of the energy of all buildings, and they emit 80%. So you could decarbonize those and have a big impact. So I was a bit on the software side. But then we saw that, as you said before, the climate tech, especially in buildings, is not something that's going to be solved with software. And I was looking at some other people in the sector. For example, Donnell Bird, he's the CEO of Block Power. They do the carbonization of buildings in the US, a big company. And they said the same thing. So software is fine, it can facilitate some things, but in this sector, we need people. And as you mentioned, the technology, it's not just that we need very new technology, but we need to deploy what's already here. It's more about deployment and about people than new technology and software. Of course, if you could create a device, let's say a machine that can heat water at 1/10 of the electricity that the heat pump consumes, it would revolutionize the sector. No, it's like saying, okay, I will have 10 more efficiency than the heat pump. It will be great. But I think we can do a lot, that this 80% reduction in emissions with the technology available. And the building sector, it's kind of a legacy system, old system that moves very slowly. So what we need to do is try to accelerate the transition.
Okay, and what after you kind of realized that, okay, I need to go from software to hardware, what was your first step? Okay, now software is one. Okay, software is basically time. You sit, you code, okay, you get a couple of people on your team, but it's still time. But with the hardware, it's actually working capital, it's equipment, it's installations, people. How did you start out?
Yes, so what our plan was kind of naive and simple, if you want. I said, okay, first, I need hands-on. And we can talk about this. I see two different parts. You know, people say that companies have two different kinds of problems, clients or employees. So I said, okay, let's start with the employees and technology. So we created a company. Alessio, my cousin, he's a mechanical engineer. We started working with one plumber, and then we simply we said, let's go and start installing. So we searched our first clients, and we started learning about heat pumps and installing. That took us like 8 months, and it was very informative. So it's very difficult to convey exactly this difficulty, but we saw that rooftop solar difficulty is 1, heat pump installation is 10. I know when I tell this to people, I say, what do you mean by 1 and 10? So it's more difficult. It's really, really more difficult. We saw many of the problems that installers have with heat pumps. All the things that can go wrong. You know, you can just add a reduction, it's just a small tube in a curve, and then the heat pump doesn't work correctly. This is why it's not correct, because you need certain diameter in a tube. You're reducing it at an angle. Up to how the machine operates and how you monitor it remotely, and have you done a correct analysis of the house before installing the heat pump? Is it well dimensioned? So there are a lot of things can go wrong with heat pumps, and you need to do it right. So our first goal was to learn that, and we got into it's called a network of heat pump installers to get support also from them and learn from them. And that was very good. So now I can say I know at least the problems I should face and the difficulty. That was the first step. Okay. Second step, this is where we're now, it's sales and how you develop, how you grow the company, how you have a go-to-market strategy and how you grow that.
This is you coming straight into my moving straight into my next question, of the question of growth. And I would imagine, like from what you just said about the difficulty level of heat pump installation, to grow and to grow fast, would you agree that you would need like a very nicely working mechanism of installation process? Because this is more about process rather than about the technology. Because okay, you get the solar panels, you get the heat pumps from vendors, but the core of your business model is the installation. So and there's a lot of things that can go wrong there, and then you need to train people. And I think the European Heat Pump Association, they named in the last report, the key difficulty to roll out is not even money, it's people. You don't have enough installers, and probably more than half of those installers that you have are really good at what they do. So the key differentiating your company would be the skill level, how people do that. So how you approach that problem, how do you approach the problem? Okay, making sure that in every installation your people do, your employees do, is top notch.
Yes. So let me exactly. I'll go one step behind. Sorry, I will answer all this. So our mission as a company, I didn't say this, is to electrify 1 million homes. So and why 1 million? It's roughly 5% of the Italian market. Italy has, I think, around 20 million living units, if you want. I wouldn't say buildings because you have condominiums. Living units, meaning homes, condominiums, apartments, everything. So 1 million would be roughly 5%. How do you do that? So let's go to the next level. I would say you could do it with 1 million installers doing one home, but there are not 1 million installers. Our company could do 1 million installations. That's also, if you do the math, it will take forever. So that's not doable. So I think we need something in the middle. If you have a network of 10,000 installers, then they should do 100 homes each, which if they do one a week, it's around 3 years to electrify 1 million homes. So to install 1 million heat pumps, you need 10,000 installers doing one a week for 3 years. If you divide that into 10 years, then it becomes really doable. 5 to 10 years is okay. That's doable. So our model, at least this is our plan. I mean, let's see how it rolls out. I see two ways you can do this. One is you build a network of installers, and there are other companies trying to do that, where installers come to your, let's say, platform, and you help them getting jobs and solving the problems they have. Or because you said in what you were saying, your employees. So this model would be without employees. You just bring the workforce into a platform. Or you could do a different business model, which is kind of a franchise, where you franchise the processes that you mentioned before, some know-how, and you help local businesses make money. Because I think in the end, this is what people want. They want to grow their businesses, want to be local, they want to be autonomous, most of them. In Italy, let me frame this in numbers. In Italy, there are 92,000 like plumbing or installation companies. Most of them they have 2 to 3 employees. They are called they're defined as micro companies. A bit less have, let's say, I think it's 3 to 9 micro and 9 to 18 or 20 middle companies. But most of installers, they are these family businesses with the grandparent. The grandfather was a plumber, the father is a plumber, the son is a plumber, and they work locally and they find their customers. Most of them, they don't know much about sales and marketing. They just receive customers. And those are the people I think that might do the transition. They make it. So you need 10,000 out of 92,000 to do what I mentioned.
Okay, but how do you make sure, that they actually do the right job?
Exactly. That requires training. But my experience, also what we learned in the last year, I would say, is that there are two things here. One is technical training, and the other thing is a cultural thing. So let me explain what I said here. So in Norway, and we always give this example, Norway has 65% of their homes fully electric today. It's done. They started in the 70s because electricity was cheap. Now they use heat pumps and other technologies. Sometimes there's electric resistance, which is really inefficient. They are changing that. Everything is electric in Norway, very cold weather. In Italy, we still have a lot of system designers and plumbers, but they've been doing business as usual, like gas boilers, since they are working. And they still say, for example, that heat pumps don't work well in cold climates. We will not work well in Italy. It's cold. And you're like, no, it's not. No, man, it's like Sweden and Norway. Says, yeah, but that doesn't count as an example. And like, why? Then they said, yeah, but I work in the US and in Ohio. I said, but what? We don't have -40, literally, in Italy. I live in the coldest region and I have -15. He said, yeah, well, but it doesn't work. And I know a case that in Italy, they install a heat pump for a swimming pool, and now the heat pump is not working correctly. Therefore, heat pumps do not work. And then I can think of 100 things that can go wrong in that installation. And I was said, did you check these? But there's this idea. So there's a cultural thing and a technical thing. I think we need to work with, first of all, sorry, I'm not so young, but with young people. We need to train a new workforce, and we need to, yes, work with those installers that are willing to see the change and adopt it. Most installers, I have to say, they are 50 years or older, which will become a bottleneck very soon, especially in Italy, in the next 10 years, because there will be a decrease of installers. But that's also, I would say, a fact. So we need to work with young installers, I think. This is at least our approach. And with people who are at least willing to accept that you can have a full electric house. It's going to be more efficient. You will pay less bills, and it will work if the processes you meant are put in place correctly. Yes.
Okay, but great. So there is a generational problem you see in Italy. Probably could be same in several other European countries, but let's just stick with Italy for the moment. Okay, so sorry for bugging you here, but I do really want to get into. I don't really want to get into this because on this podcast, I like to speak to founders to share their tactics, how you actually do things, in your day-to-day work, and how you meet your challenges. Because there's one challenge you described when you actually have to get through this cultural barrier and get these installers who've been doing the same thing for the last 20-30 years to believe in heat pumps and actually start installing them, taking those orders. This is one. But then, okay, they say they believe you, or you get the young people on and say, okay, but how do we do this? From my perspective, I would see then your company moving more towards like edtech, more educational space rather than installations. So, but that education, that training, I mean, for example, I was doing a project and we were building a factory for wind turbines. Now, that was in Russia, and nobody were building wind turbines there at the time. So we had to make a training program. Well, it cost us not millions. It was still in thousands of euros, but was a significant sum to prepare the program, get the people there, train the trainers, train the people, correct all the mistakes we were done in the training, and so on and so on, until we taught people to assemble the wind turbines in a controlled environment, which is the factory. In your case, every home could be different. I mean, of course, there are some standard types of homes in Italy, but you have very old homes too. So you can come home, it could be, okay, this was here for a couple of centuries now, so sometimes there's an additional layer of difficulty, I would imagine, or maybe I'm wrong. So how would you actually go? Say you got these people, so you already have them, because you have installers working for you. How do you go about? What process do you use to iterate, to perfect your installation procedure? Yes. Evaluation, installation.
Yeah, well, there's exactly. So let me tell you, because you mentioned several parts in installation. I think you touch a very good point. We think the bottleneck here, or at least one of the bottlenecks at the moment, it's the system designer. So yes, so there's not just the installation and the installer. There's a system designer. What does it mean? If you need to do a retrofit in a house, there must be a person, usually an engineer, who makes a plan for the house, and who needs to be responsible for the process and not the process, because the process can be standard, but for the results. So he should run some checks to avoid, for example, having a cold house in winter. That should never happen. That's our worst nightmare. So no, an undersized heat. So I think a lot of education, and this is a cultural shift, should go into these system designers. And then, at least, again, our naive and approach, it's been a copy of what I would say Tesla has been doing with electric cars. Yeah, it's the simple idea of, let's just start electrifying. Let's have some data. Let's put it out there, and let's show people fully electric homes. And our next target is a fully electric neighborhood, for example. So I think once you have that, then you can start bringing more people into it. They will see, no? It's not just Norway and Sweden. We are in Trentino. You can have these 5 homes, see how much they energy consumption and bills, see how it works, see how intelligent the home becomes, how it interacts with the rooftop solar, see all the benefits. No? That on the one side. On the other side, the European Union has just given new directions, and they will forbid very inefficient homes from, I think, 2030. So all homes with class G and F will be forbidden. So there will be also this push with the it's going to be mandatory to upgrade those homes. And in cold weathers, this when you need to jump classes, you cannot do it with the gas boiler. So if you fully renovate a house, there's a threshold of 65%, I think now, of you need to have 65% of renewable energy. So energy in your house should come from a renewable source, at least up to 65%. And in cold weathers, the heating system is 80% of the home. So there's a de facto prohibition. You know, they already did it without saying it, but you need heat pumps. So how fast will this transformation be? I'm not sure, but let me tell you some data from the building construction. In the 1970s, 80s, everyone was building heating systems with radiators and gas boilers. Then around the 1980s, I think, I'm not sure what exactly, 1980s, 90, people started using radiant pavement. So they're heating the floor. And people were like, no, but this doesn't work, and this and this and this and that. So it took something like 20 to 25 years to become the de facto the best heating system. So now today, people say radiant pavement, at least 95% of people say that's the best system. You need to circulate water at 30, 35 degrees. It has a much better heat sensation when you're in a house. So excellent. Now they say, what about radiant ceiling? I said, work? I don't know. It's not so good. So instead of adding tubes on the pavement, just put on a ceiling. And there's this resistance, you know. But if you talk to system designers doing radiant ceiling, they said it's much better. You don't have obstacles. You don't have sofas, tables, beds. The heating comes more uniform. You can do cooling in winter. But all these things, they take time. It's not that you have a new system, you prove it, and people say, yes, okay, this adoption, you know, takes time. So my guess is that we need to move fast into demonstrating the advantages of fully electric buildings in terms of energy reduction, energy consumption, so monetary savings and emissions. And we need to really demonstrate this to people so that they can follow later on, pushed also by regulations. As I mentioned, there will be a big push. I mean, it's already here with the building environment.
What about investors? Do you need to demonstrate it to investors, or you do not use investors' funds for your growth?
Yeah, that's good. Up to now, we have a friend of mine who invests in our company, but more of a loan. And we use that money just for operational purposes, just to operate. As you mentioned, you have costs, 2 vans and buy materials, operating, and then the employee. And now I'm just starting, so that's a very good question. We are exploring the possibility of building this network of contractors. And for that, we sign it. It's some kind of agreement. It's like we want to test if it works, the idea, for 6 months with an accelerator. It's called a startup accelerator. It's called Fit Ventures, and we're in the process of doing that. If that goes well, we'll use investor money to grow.
To grow for your network of installers.
Exactly. Yes.
And that would be, just to be clear, that would be like a software actually, which would help this which an installer could join and then find like local orders or what?
Again, I don't think the software, it's you can have a website without running software. No, I think it's more about the process that you mean. So bringing together. And yeah, like I'm bringing together a system designer with the installer, with salesmen in a local area, the right things to do. So putting all the processes together and bringing all these people together. There are different models in the market. So one model is I have a company, I produce heat pumps. There's a company in Sweden, IRA. They produce their own heat pump. They hire their own employees. They expand locally in different countries. They do vertical integration. That's one way. My question is, how fast can you hire 10,000 installers? So then we have this barrier. Another model, let me tell you about Block Power in the US. They have all the processes that you mentioned. They have software to evaluate the heat loss in buildings automatically. Jeff Bezos, I think they gave them $5 million to do this. So they made a map of New York, so we can see the potential for electrification of building in economic terms, not just technical terms. And what they do is they team up with local installers. So local installers, they're not on their payroll. They help them grow, and they have these big projects, and they bring the people, and they do the quality control. Another model you can use is just helping local installers install heat pumps. So then what do they need? So they are not on your payroll, they're not your employees. You have different companies working this network, but you can provide them with services. So for example, system designers with experience with heat pumps, clients, and the system designer. You can provide them with subsidized finance. You could provide them with financing. There are all these parts that need to work together. You can help them do that. And then I think you can grow much faster because then it's just how long would it take to have, say, 1,000 installers in your network? And then how long would it take 4,000? And then 10,000.
So this way you're actually focusing on the key problem of the heat pump market, on bringing more people, making them more qualified, helping them source the orders, rather than just developing your business as an installer.
Exactly. You help installers grow their business, yes. And you help them with the many difficulties they have. Let me tell you one difficulty. When I was doing myself, when I was at the homes, if you do that 10 hours a day, to me, this is kind of a crazy thing these people do. There are 2 or 3 people working in the company, usually on phone. They go and work all day long. They install the heat pump, then they install the tubes, and they don't have the materials, but then the tube doesn't pass. They need to make a hole in the wall, and then how do you do it? So they are solving all these practical issues that need to be solved to do the job right. Then they arrive home in the evening, and need to prepare offers for new clients. They need to talk to a client. They need to make offers with a computer. They need to sort the financing of the small company. They need to run a company in their extra time. So that's a huge burden, and most of these installers are not highly digitalized. So they use their phone. They just call people. A client asks them for an offer. They respond 3 weeks later. So you see all the things. There are all these issues and problems. And then who designs the system? Who makes sure that the thing is working? And then you have permits, and if there are subsidies in like or fiscal breaks, for example, that there are in Italy a lot, then you need a separate figure which will talk to the installer. So it becomes very complex. Mm-hmm. And I see these people that are really overwhelmed. I don't know how they do it. I've been there, and it's like you cannot do these two things. It's two different jobs. So there's a lot of opportunities there to help these people.
So this would be also because one of the things which I when I was doing my own investigation in the heat pump market, I also first thing I saw that it's a local market. Okay, it's a big market globally. In Europe, it's growing fast, but it's nothing like, I don't know, if you do wind turbines or you do solar panels, you just manufacture them mass and you build this huge, energy installations with a huge solar field or wind farm. Just put like 100 turbines and that's it. Here it's like door to door, So the problem which I had investors asking me is that, okay, how do we scale this? This is all fine, but this looks like a very, very local thing. So your application to the Fit Ventures, to the accelerator, is it an attempt to kind of scale that?
Yes. Yeah. But you can try to solve one piece of this puzzle at a time, mm-hmm. At scale. But I totally agree. So, but this is so. How do you scale this? It depends on the definition of scaling. I'm telling this because
your definition actually is quite, I would say, sufficient, because you say, okay, I want to electrify 1 million homes. 1 million is a scale. I mean, 5% of the Italian housing stock is scale.
Yeah, I'm saying because some people say that scale, if you need to scale with people, it doesn't scale. I say by definition. So I say, okay, then I'm not scaling. If you need 10,000 installers to do 1 million, as opposed to software, where you make one piece of software and then you rapidly just replicate that. And this sector, I think it doesn't scale by that definition, but it will grow. Let's just grow if you want, not scale.
Well, I think there's I forgot who was that. I think it's Bloomberg, that they forecast it's 1 million heat pumps installed 2023. In 2030, they plan 7 million heat pumps to be installed only in Europe. Yes. That scale. I mean, that's growth. I mean, yes. So for me, I'm not from the IT or tech world. I'm from the energy world. And for me, if you can do a 5% of a housing market in a populous European country, that's scale. I mean, that's big. So, and I would say a lot of these sectors in Greentech, they are hardware dependent. Yeah. So to scale something, you need to build things and install things and maintain things. Everywhere I look, from electric vehicles, wind turbines to electric chargers or heat pumps, everywhere you need to build things and you need to install things and maintain things. So this is why I was so interested to talk to you on the heat pump, because you started small, you started local with the going door to door and installing heat pumps and running into all these sort of problems with the pipe not going at the right angle or having a smaller diameter or whatever. And then slowly you kind of adapt that and you find things that work. And then you say, okay, I want to share that so that more people can come and we can create more jobs, so we can get people, to spend, not to idle too much time, because sometimes you just don't have orders, so you just sit there.
Exactly, and it's a process how you develop and how you deploy. I would say how you deploy all this technology, as I said, and we could speak a lot about all the steps, but basically you have homes that you need to retrofit. The European Union, they know it. It's really bad, the situation, because they're very inefficient buildings. There's a huge opportunity, but it's very bad. Italy, for example, they import 40% of gas to cover their energy needs. So what do you need to do that? If you electrify a building and you do the envelopes, or and you do it right, and you reduce 80% the consumption, you are eliminating gas from the building and reducing 80% the energy required, which means if you burn that gas in a central power plant and you send the electricity, you will still burn a fifth of the gas needed. So they know this. It's okay. It's really a no-brainer. We need to do this. Okay. So now you have the problem, different problems in this sector, which is basically who's going to finance this? It's not cheap to do a retrofit. You're talking 20 to 50,000 euro, depending on what you do on the house. It's sometimes more per house. So who's going to finance this? Who's going to do it? So then you have the problem of who designs and makes the project for each installation, who installs, and the workforce. So I think all these steps needs to be solved. We are solving the installers at the moment, and if you want the brain of the design of each building, I think financing is not the biggest bottleneck. At least in Italy, there are many banks that they finance these kind of projects with very good interest rates. And then governments, they're giving money. So national governments and European Union, they're giving money to install rooftop solar. They're giving money in tax breaks to install heat pumps and rooftop solar for private citizens. So I think finance is not the big issue. It's how you do it, all the processes, and who's going to do it. And then there will be opportunities. There are companies, they do EdTech. So they will train the workforce. It's not so easy as because you said it before, not so simple as, let's say, learning how to program. There are some companies, they say, come with us. We teach you how to program. You go get a job, and then you pay me once you get the job. Here it's not so simple because training requires, as you mentioned with the wind turbines, on-site, hands-on training. Yes, you need to be a plumber. Say, just a plumber. Yes, you need to be a plumber, and then learn about heat pumps, and then how they work, and then learn a bit about the electric part of a heat pump, how they connect with thermostats, intelligent part of a house. So that requires, it's an opportunity, I think. It requires people to train the new workforce.
What about, so you've been in this for a couple of years now already, right?
Yes.
If you could go back like 2 or 3 years back, would there be anything that you would do differently from judging from the position you are now in? I mean, from the experience you had? Just one thing.
One thing doing differently. Yeah, maybe talk earlier to with mentors and people that they know how to, or they have experience scaling. You know? I would go earlier with them. So because
why?
So because I see these two approaches here. No, so our approach is let's go on the field and learn the things that work and do not work. That was the correct decision, because you know, in Y Combinator, this big accelerator in the US, they have a word for this called torpid ideas. Torpid ideas are ideas that they are very reasonable and they look very nice on paper. So people say, oh, I have this issue. I want to make an app to help people save time with the dentist. Yeah, that would be great. No, but you don't really know if it works. So that was good. The problem with that is that then you're fixed with a lot of details, and you lose the perspective of, okay, how are you going to do this 10,000? So and now that we're working with people that are more used to scaling, they come from the other side. I hear their torpid ideas is that, wait, because maybe installers don't want faster offers, and they want clients, but okay. But I would keep always that as my my goal. So it helps you direct more in a more directed way your goals, and it should be 1 million homes, 1 million homes. So if you're doing things that you're learning the difficulties, but it's not exactly targeted on 1 million homes, you can waste some time. So you need both, but I think it's good to have from early on mentors and investors that they have this the idea of you need to scale this thing.
Okay, great. And just my final question, traditional one. What would you recommend Greentech startups could, just in the beginning of the journey?
If you're new to the field, just go and learn as fast as you can on the field. Just
so
experiment.
Don't waste time on the kind of trainings and so on. Just go and try to do things.
Yes, and learn on the field. Try to get mentors also on the field. The network we work with heat pump installers. We've learned a lot from them. We couldn't have done this without them. We install rooftop solar without any help of anyone. You just go and read manual. You learn. Heat pumps, no, you need. So try to go and as fast as you can solve problems and see if people feel that's a real problem, and go from there. Build from there. I really my biggest fear is torpid ideas. So when you get stuck with an idea, you think it's great. It takes 4 or 6 months to test, and then you find out no, the reality is different. So that's why we went to just go and install. Talk to customers, install. Bang your head to the wall many times, see all the problems, and build from there. Yes,
that's good. That's great. Okay, Lisandro, so thank you very much. It's a very insightful conversation. And how do you electrify 1 million homes? I mean, and the answer is not tech. The answer is not software. It's people. Yeah. So and that's the hard part.
exactly.
So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking time as well. And I wish you and your company good luck, and that you scale fast and that you do that 1 million homes faster than you think so.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk in a couple of years. Let's see where we are.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.